It's the middle of a Soviet winter. 9 seasoned hikers suddenly slice their tent open from the inside and run out into the brutal sub-zero wilderness. They don't have their shoes, they don't have their coats. Weeks later, when their bodies are found, the scene only gets stranger. Some have bizarre, crushing injuries. One is missing her tongue, and their clothes are radioactive. What could possibly drive 9 rational people to a certain terrifying death on a mountain the locals call Dead Mountain? For over 60 years, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has been a story told in hushed tones, a perfect, horrifying mystery where the facts are somehow stranger than fiction. The original Soviet investigation blamed a compelling natural force, but that vague explanation just made the whole thing more confusing and opened the door to decades of wild speculation. So, let's walk through the established facts. Look at the modern scientific theory that claims to have solved it, and then descend into the chilling paranormal and conspiracy theories that just refuse to die. Section 1. The Final Journey. In late January of 1959, a group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, set out on a seriously tough winter trek. Their goal was to cross the unforgiving northern Ural Mountains and summit Mount Otorten. These weren't amateurs. They were young, athletic, and very experienced. They even documented the early parts of their journey with cheerful photos and detailed diary entries. In a twist of luck, one member, Yuri Yudin, had to turn back on January 28th because of severe joint pain, a decision that would make him the expedition's sole survivor. The remaining 9 traveled by train, truck, and finally skis, leaving the last outpost of civilization behind as they pushed into the wilderness. Dyatlov had a plan. He would send a telegram to their sports club by February 12th to signal they'd finished the route. When the 12th came and went with no word, nobody panicked right away. Delays were common in conditions that harsh. But as the silence stretched on, concern turned to alarm. And on February 20th, a massive search party was sent out. On February 26th, searchers made the first grim discovery on the exposed slope of a mountain called Kholat Syakhl, which translates from the local Mansi language to Dead Mountain. They found the group's tent, half crushed, buried in the snow, and sliced open from the inside. All the hikers' boots, warm coats, and gear had been left behind. It was a scene of pure panic. Leading away from the campsite, rescuers found tracks from 8 or 9 people. The footprints showed they were wearing only socks, a single shoe, or were completely barefoot in temperatures as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius, minus 22 Fahrenheit. And crucially, there were no other footprints, no sign of anyone else, no sign of a struggle. The tracks led for nearly a mile down the slope toward a forest. There, under a large cedar, the search party found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They were shoeless and dressed only in their underwear. Their hands showed burns and singed skin, signs they had been near a small, desperate fire. Over the next few days, 3 more bodies were found, scattered between the cedar tree and the tent. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustem Slobodin. Their positions suggested they were making a final, hopeless attempt to crawl back up the slope to their camp. For these first 5, the medical examiner determined they had all died of hypothermia. The real mystery, however, was just getting started. It would take 2 more months to find the rest. Section 2. The bizarre injuries and the official conclusion. On May 4th, as the deep winter snow finally began to melt, the last 4 hikers were found in a ravine, buried under more than 10 feet of snow. And what the autopsies uncovered turned this from a tragic accident into an enduring riddle. While hypothermia was a factor, it wasn't what killed all of them. 3 of the 4 had suffered horrific internal trauma. Nicholas Thibault Brignol had a massive skull fracture. Semyon Zolotaryov and Lyudmila Dubinina both had multiple broken ribs and severe chest fractures. A doctor on the case noted that the force needed to cause such damage was like being hit by a car. But weirdly, their bodies had no major external bruises or wounds. It was as if they'd been crushed by some immense, invisible pressure. The strangeness didn't stop there. Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue and some soft facial tissue. While forensic analysis suggests this was likely the result of natural decay and scavenging animals in the running water of the ravine, it remains one of the most haunting details of the case. Investigators also noticed that some of the hikers had taken clothing from their dead friends, cutting the garments off the bodies. Faced with this mess of contradictions, the Soviet investigation wrapped up quickly. In May 1959, the case was abruptly closed. The official cause of death was attributed to a compelling natural force, a statement so empty it just fueled more suspicion. The case files were shelved and access was restricted for years. When researchers finally got a look in the 1990s, they found gaps and inconsistencies in the records, leading to allegations that some materials had gone missing. This lack of a clear answer guaranteed the Dyatlov Pass Incident would become legend. So far, we've stuck to the documented facts. But this is where the story splits into two very different paths: science and speculation. If you think unsolved mysteries like this are as fascinating as we do, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Section 3. The Science. The Slab Avalanche Theory. For decades, that compelling natural force was a complete mystery. But starting in the late 2000s, a new Russian investigation in separate scientific studies pointed toward a plausible, if complicated, explanation: a slab avalanche. Now, a slab avalanche isn't the giant, thundering wave of snow you see in movies. It's when a dense slab of snow sits on top of a weak, unstable layer. That top layer can suddenly break loose and slide down in heavy, block-like chunks. The snow on Kolatchakal was known to have this weak base layer, making it risky terrain. So, how does this theory explain the bizarre facts? It starts with the hikers' campsite. To shield their tent from the wind, the group had cut into the snowpack to level a spot. According to research by Swiss scientists, this logical move was likely a critical mistake that destabilized the snow above them. Their model suggests the avalanche didn't happen right away. Instead, powerful katabatic winds, cold, dense air flowing down the mountain, likely piled more snow onto the slab all night, slowly adding pressure. Then, hours after the hikers fell asleep, the weak layer gave way. A relatively small slab of dense, heavy snow would have slid down, collapsing the tent. The scientists' simulations showed that the impact from these snow blocks on people lying down could plausibly create the exact kind of severe internal trauma, crushed ribs and fractured skulls, with minimal external bruising. This single event could explain the panic. Trapped in the dark, suffocating, with some friends already badly hurt, and the fear of another slide, cutting their way out was the fastest escape. In shock and disoriented, they fled downhill toward the forest, the only visible shelter, without stopping for their clothes. This one theory seems to explain the cut tent, the internal injuries, and the half-dressed escape. It even explains why rescuers found no signs of an avalanche weeks later. Wind and new snow would have easily hidden the evidence of a small slide. In 2020, the Russian Prosecutor General's office officially announced its conclusion: an avalanche and other natural hazards were to blame, ruling out any criminal foul play. Section 4. The unsettling leftovers and alternative theories. But for many people, the avalanche theory just doesn't feel complete. It struggles to neatly explain some of the most haunting details. Why was Lyudmila's tongue missing? What about the low levels of radiation found on some of their clothes? And what about the reports from other hikers in the area who saw strange, glowing orange spheres in the sky that night? These are the details that keep the conspiracy theories alive. The most popular one points to a secret Soviet military weapons test. Some researchers claim the area was near potential flight paths for missile launches and they argue that an airburst from an experimental weapon could have created a shockwave, causing the crushing internal injuries. The flash and boom would explain the panic and the orange spheres, and the government would have every reason to cover it up. The radiation on the clothes is often held up as the smoking gun for this theory. Then you get into the more fringe ideas. Some have suggested that infrasound, low-frequency sound created by wind patterns over the mountain, drove the hikers into a state of irrational terror, causing them to flee. But that doesn't explain the physical injuries. An attack by the local Mansi people was ruled out almost immediately. There were no unknown tracks, and the Mansi were actively helping the search. And of course, no mystery this strange is complete without a touch of the paranormal. A joke in one of the hikers' own journals about a snowman has fueled sensational theories of a Yeti attack. But again, no animal tracks were ever found. Finally, those orange spheres have led many to believe the hikers stumbled upon a UFO, and their deaths were the result of a terrifying alien encounter. While these theories are captivating, it's important to note that they lack direct evidence in the case record. More than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident is still caught between two worlds. In one, we have a plausible science-backed explanation, a tragic but understandable chain of events kicked off by a rare type of avalanche. The hikers made one small mistake in a place with no room for error, and nature in its indifferent power did the rest. But in the other world, we have a handful of unsettling facts that the clean explanation doesn't quite resolve. The missing tongue, the radiation, the lights in the sky. These details pull the story into the realm of conspiracy and the paranormal, hinting at a darker, more sinister truth. Perhaps the real question isn't just what happened, but what's more terrifying? A secret weapon or a monster? Or the stark reality that a simple slab of snow, set in motion by a shovel in the wind, can be just as deadly and far more real. The story of the 9 hikers who walked into the wilderness and never came out isn't just a mystery. It's a chilling reminder of the fine line between adventure and oblivion, and of the secrets that sometimes the mountains decide to keep.